Welcome back. You're still watching Mzansi Fundiz, a show where we speak about football and we talk about everything that needs to be said about the game. The AFCON is happening in Morocco, but fast forward 2 years after that, we're going to be noticing a change. East of Africa is where our focus is. It's time that we look at these qualifiers and how the teams in that region are doing. Group K would be a great starting point, Lufuno. Bafana, let's have a look at that. Yeah. Uganda, they're with Uganda in that group. Do you think they can qualify ahead of Bafana, Uganda, that is?
Yeah, I think the main thing here is that they need to look at preparations. They already know that they'll be hosting the AFCON in the next edition. So they will probably want to really have a go at the current one as part of preparation when they come to host.
And I mean, their coach, Paul Put, he was a coach for Congo. Does that give them an advantage in terms of saying they know what's happening? They should be prepared. At least they would get enough points from that match on its own.
Interesting point, it's that we need to look at the scope of the team. When you look at the scope of the team and what they've done is that this was something that was done by Ghana, but I think for Ghana it didn't work out. And for them, they've said, our players that are playing internationally so that have our citizenship, they can come through and play into the team. And they are doing that and they're looking so good. You saw the game they played against South Africa, they gave us a tough time. I mean, that 2-2 draw tells you something very interesting about that team. So for me, I think they're going to get out of that group.
Group H should be now our focus. And it's a very interesting group because we've had so many chats on, Wananchi. We've had a chat about Simba and the rivalry that's going on in that region. I take a look at Tanzania. They're on 4 points in Group H, behind DR Congo rather. Can we say they're going to qualify and they should be home and dry when teams are being mentioned at the tournament?
Yeah, look, these two teams, they always, give each other tough times. If you look at the past 3 or 4 games, you will see the results are very balanced between the two teams. So you could see that the impact of having teams that are competing in the Champions League space also really assist in terms of it wraps off into the national team. So what Wananchi is doing, what Simba is doing, really helps the national team to actually improve.
Does then say to us we need to take seriously these club competition because, as you were mentioning rightfully, they are there, that they've managed to compile a squad that is able to compete with the other players?
Yeah, most definitely. It helps because then your players get exposed into the international space and they're able to compete when they get to the national team as well.
We look at Simba, we look at Wananchi, the rivalry. Do we then put that aside and make you realize that football is being taken seriously in this region in terms of the fans? So do you now expect a lot of supporters to be supporting this national team at any given moment? Yeah,
as I said, it's the same similarities that they will also be having an opportunity to host as well in the next edition. So it's always important that the edition before you host, you play, so that you can be able to be part of the preparation when you host, you're going to compete, not just to compete, but to win.
Let's take a peep next door, Ethiopia, and have a look at number 3 in the group. They're not really started that great. With 1 point, you look at DR Congo, they're on 6. You look at Tanzania, they're on 4. Can they do something? We have a player that's playing for your team, Sundowns. Can he recover from his injury fully and then help the team?
Look, it's a question of periodization for him. It's a question of how do they condition him in terms
of... and that's Nasir, yeah.
And remember, he was their captain at some point, And that speaks volumes. Even before he even came to Sundowns, he was a captain. He's a leader in the team. So for me, I think he needs to inspire the team because most of the players that are playing in the team look up to him. And when you look at the team prior to this campaign, they were doing so well. At some point, they gave us even a run for our own money. So for me, I think they probably will challenge it a little bit. The most important thing is traveling away. Playing at home, it's not an issue. When you're playing at home, it's a question of, okay, we're going to win it. When you play away, can you put up the same stance that you put up when you are playing at home? So we look at that and we dissect that and say, chances are they're just going to have a tough time in doing it.
Let's see, let me stick with you and have a look at Group J, because when we take a look at Kenya, famously known as producing athletes, long distance runners. Yeah. We look at them topping the group. They're on 4 points, equal with former champions, Cameroon. Can we say there's a shift happening in the East where now you're starting to see trends that you haven't really noticed? No one expected them to be leading a group that has Cameroon.
Yeah, look, I think Cameroon has had a couple of issues. And when you look at that, it then gives them an opportunity to say, with the issues they've had outside of the field, that is Cameroon, can this team take advantage of that? And slowly but surely, if you look at the point system and the difference they have, look at the goal difference, it tells you that this team is up there. And they might just give them a challenge for that.
And that's their next opponent. They're playing Cameroon now.
Exactly. So that tells you that it's going to be amped up. And again, if you stretch this and you look at the team, look at where they are in their World Cup qualifiers, it says a lot about their football.
A lot about their football indeed. That's a lot that's happening. So what we need to look at now, let's focus on the fact that you have another group which has Ghana. We saw the scenes happening when they lost against Angola. Those were not great scenes. The missiles being thrown in. Is that a good advertisement for football?
No, it's not good for football. They can do better. Ghana is one of the, regarded as one of the powerful nations in Africa in terms of football. And they need to be able to introspect themselves and say what went wrong. What can they do to change this? Because they've not been doing well in African competitions recently. So
and it's not like they don't have the names.
They do have the players. As I said, they have to really look at maybe administratively wise as to what do they need to fix so that they can get back. They can get back where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to survive this. I've been administratively, they're ridiculous if one can use that word. I'm sorry to say that to the Ghanaian guys, but you look at that team, what the concept of taking players that are playing abroad and saying with Ghanaian citizenships or your citizenship that you have in Europe, come into our team and let's play. They haven't been able to gel their team together. They've been continuously taking the two brothers. Only one is consistent.
Brothers,
And for that, if they need to walk away from that and focus on the football more than that and say, legacy alone, we agree that your dad did something, let's walk away from that.
So are you saying it's time that they start afresh and let go of their youth brothers?
100%. They need to do that. They've got such good quality of players.
He's mentioning administrative issues, and I look at videos that players put forward where patches of grass, it wasn't in proper state. And you look at that and you say, surely there has to be a groundsman that takes care of this field. Surely these are some of the minor things that have to be sorted out before even the match starts.
You have to look at that, and you also have to, just have a look at their league. When last did you see a team from Ghana competing in the Champions League? So that tells you a lot in terms of, the state of football in Ghana in general.
How do we then fix that state of football in Ghana? Do you go that route? Because SC feels that they're cheating the system by trying and bypassing it and not looking internally and fixing things that are happening in their house, but looking elsewhere where they're outsourcing the responsibility to somebody else. How would you then go and sort that out?
If you look at a lot of African nations now, what they do, you look at their leagues. Their leagues are very, very strong. Administratively, look at Morocco, you can look at South Africa, you can look at Egypt. Look at what is happening in Tanzania now. You will start to see the teams coming up. And when these teams coming up in the Champions League, then that's when you start to see it wraps off to the national team. And then football grows in that region. You cannot only look at players that are playing overseas and you think that you can just fix it.
And also, maybe this is a trend we might be seeing in general with the teams that are in Africa. The coaches that are taking charge of the teams, locally brewed, gives that an advantage.
Yeah, most definitely. A lot of teams, even in Champions League, even you look at in the national teams, you start to see now a local, a personnel coaching those teams.
We saw with Ivory Coast when they were losing it.
Can I just add on to that?
Yeah.
I love the fact that you're mentioning Ivory Coast and what we've seen in terms of them hosting. And you look at how they've administratively done well to fix their stadiums. Point in reference, let's look at the Ghanaian stadiums. Poor to a certain extent. And for me, I look at them and say, 6 years plus into their democracy, we're learning from them when you look at in that space in terms of political space. But you take it back into football. They've stepped back a little bit. They've got some of the greatest players that played in Europe. Go back to those guys, talk to them and say, hey guys, you are our legends. What can we learn from these European leagues that you've been playing at? Let's bring it back at home. What you're saying in terms of them cheating is what the world is doing. They're taking players from our own country, including
yeah.
them in their countries. So what they're doing is not cheating in a way. It's just bypassing the system and finding a way to make sure that their football is sustained. They've got great talent in those players that they're bringing in. Just find somebody who can gel the team together.
If I were to let this conversation carry on forever, we would never come to an end. African football, East African football in particular, there's a lot to offer. Make sure that you do catch another episode next week where we'll be giving away goodies from Ben Sherman. I love you all. Remember to treat the people that you love right. Cheers, cheers.